ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome into another episode of Infection Podcast. We cover the very interesting, always evolving intersection of video games and politics. My name's Nick Craig. You can give me a follow on Twitter at Nicholas M. Craig or check out our website, infectionpodcast.com. Can't do this thing alone. He's over from the dark side. He was a big PlayStation fan, and now he's on board with the Microsoft. No, we don't fault you for your previous mistakes, Brian. Brian with an I Aldrich. Hey, Brian.
Hello. Hey, if you want to find me, you can get me at Boise Computer on Twitter, at Brian Aldrich on Gab, Getter, or Truth Social. So I used to have PlayStation, but it was for Red Dead Redemption, the original, and it was for The Last of Us. And The Last of Us has kind of gone woke, and I mean, the last one was okay. It was good. It's a well-made video game, but the story wasn't really that grabbing, in my opinion, compared to some of the original one that they did, and they've put a lot more politics into it. Red Dead Redemption, though, one of my favorite games of all time, so I would definitely play, and that's available on Xbox now. So right, I swear I have it on maybe
Red Dead Redemption.
Yeah, isn't that,
that's where I originally played. Yeah, that's where I originally played.
Yeah, so I mean, I think I own it on Xbox now, so I could play it through. I think actually, I purchased it so my wife could play through the game. So I do have
so today is the day. If you're watching us live on Tuesday, the 18th of July, when the clock strikes midnight on the East Coast, I believe it will be, the deadline for the big Microsoft Activision gazillion dollar merger is supposed to be completed by today. Now there's some stuff kind of breaking as we're on the air this evening. This first one is out of the United States Supreme Court, like just a couple of hours ago. They blocked a last minute, or they rejected, is a better word to use, a last minute rejection or last minute bid to block this Activision Blizzard takeover. Surprisingly, Brian, somebody who I'm surprised, Elaine Kagan on the Supreme Court, very liberal justice on the Supreme Court, turned down a request filed by, this one was not the FTC. This was just a group of, it says group of gamers, so a group of neckbeards who were looking for an emergency injunction.
This is unfair. They're going to take my Call of Duty away.
Which is the same kind of crap that the FTC tried pulling with this, last minute, preliminary injunction. We need a safe harbor for the courts. Please protect us. Without getting too much into this, and I'll note this, I'm not a financial expert. I'm not a business expert, but I follow this stuff close enough. I've got enough common sense. This is essentially a vertical, from what I understand, this is a vertical merger. This is not two companies that make two separate products that are merging to make one product. Both of these companies make completely different products. There is crossover, yes, but they are two companies, and merging them does not mean that one of the companies is, quote, going away. And if you need a good example of this, and I hate to continue to beat the dead horse on this, Brian, but look at Bethesda. Microsoft has owned Bethesda for 3 or 4 years now, and Bethesda's still a thing. They're still working on games. It's not just all Microsoft. So all of these last-minute objections and bids, I watched CNBC in the morning because it's a little bit, I keep it on in the studio just to kind of see what's going on. And during one of the shows, I had the sound on, and even they mentioned, we don't even know if this is going to happen tonight. We're not sure if it's going to happen today. We don't know. Microsoft made some huge news today about AI pricing. That's their big news for people that are already subscribers to Office 365. You can get an additional service at $30 a month.
And can I say something really quick? Because
absolutely.
If you look at Google and their Google apps, if you look at what Microsoft, their email part of 365 and Google apps, it was kind of a wash in a lot of areas. There wasn't really anything that would make you, other than, Google Apps now is very compatible with Outlook. It does calendar sharing, it does a lot of the things that Microsoft does, but there wasn't really anything that would pull you to their email service, because I have an email account on Google Apps and I have an email account on Microsoft Office 365 platform. But this is something that would tempt me to move my main account over to Microsoft Office to get these extra features and not have to pay an additional fee just to bring that in.
Well, let me say this, and I'm actually in the process for an organization I do some work with. We're actually moving away from Google Apps. The reason so many people use Google Apps is because it was so freaking cheap at the beginning. I mean, it was just
back
pennies.
in the day, yeah. Well, they gave away free accounts too in the beginning, and then the lifetime free accounts that they took away.
Yeah, but even for small businesses, 10 to 15 email addresses, Google's was very affordable. It was like $7 to $9 a user. It was very cheap. It's upwards of $15 now, which is equivalent to what you get from 365. So we're actually moving to Zoho for some of our stuff because it's so much cheaper. But yeah, this will give individuals that have Office 365 the ability to use the AI, which I don't want to get all that into. But so Microsoft's hot today. Their stock closed at a record high. They were up almost 4% today. The high 52-week high was today at 366. So I mean, their stock is just, if you look at their stock, it's absolutely killing it. When you look at even a 6-month stock chart here, you can see how the trend has continued to go up, and it's going to continue. So we don't really know exactly what is going to happen. What's going to happen today, we don't know. So I did a lot of digging into this throughout the week based on our conversation last week, and presumably the price won't change. I don't believe that Bobby Kotick and Activision are going to try and renegotiate, but presumably they could, because the contract is up. The date is passed. Now the question will be, and I would assume that through this last year and a half, that the Microsoft team and the Activision team have come to an agreement that, hey, we'll just kind of let this go and leave the price. But closing could be imminent within the next couple of weeks, or maybe even next couple of days. We just really don't know what's going to happen. So it's an interesting situation to watch.
One thing, according to Reuters, they're supposedly in talks right now to extend that deal contract, because the problem is right now with this date ending, they each have the option to walk away, and I don't sense that either one of them are wanting to walk away, but I think they're trying to renegotiate this contract to be able to lock it down to where they can still have that. It takes away that fear that someone's just going to all of a sudden make a drastic move. Yeah. So if they can get that together, just to get past the final CMA things, the final FTC things, which FTC's been kind of reckless lately. I don't know if you saw. I don't know if you saw when they were grilling the head of the con.
She's an idiot.
Con, I think from the. The one who replaced that McCain. They replaced McCain as her, where she was grilling her so hard and actually pointed out something that she was doing illegal and called her out, brought up her law license and everything, how it's expired, but she's practicing law, and really made her look like a fool in front of everybody. You can tell that this person is not super serious about her job, is not honest, because she couldn't answer a question straight throughout the whole proceedings. And it was, so that's who we have making these decisions or directing these decisions at the FTC. So I don't think that anything's really, it just seems like they're going on vendettas with, maybe she's against big corporations, whatever it is.
She's anti-corporation. And she's using, and she's attempting, and she's attempting to use the federal government as a weapon against private industry. That's exactly what she's doing. The FTC in the last couple of months has gotten themselves, has put their nose in a whole bunch of things that they have no business being in. And the situation from last week that we discussed, I don't know if it was you or me that said something that was incorrect, that the judge was a Trump appointee. No, this was a California judge that was a Biden appointee that called out the FTC called out the FTC chair and the whole organization for their BS. So that was in the article. They claimed that it was a drug appointee, a Trump appointee on that. That was that judge, and it's probably just because they're trying to slam the decision and try to make people, in that district think negatively. So they're going so far out and getting so crazy about the things they're trying to pursue that I think they're just indefensible in court becomes the problem, regardless of what side of the aisle you're on.
these things that they're claiming and these things that they're pushing are not defensible, and it's making them lose on a regular basis. So I think that's good for us. I want to see this deal go through because I think it's going to be good for the products that I like to play. I think it's going to move forward a lot of technologies. You you had mentioned, I keep seeing that there's these servers that were brought back online that are Activision Blizzard servers, but it wasn't Activision Blizzard who fixed these servers.
Yeah,
It was Microsoft who went in and fixed some servers today, and I guess gamers have been going nuts, and also you have been playing.
I have been reliving middle school the past couple of days. This happened a couple of years ago. Microsoft, one of the cool things about the Xbox One, and by the way, the Xbox One has not been a great console. I didn't find it. Now, also, to be fair, when the Xbox One was coming out, it was also transitioning over to PC, so that thing. But I've never been a big fan of the Xbox One. It's a chunky, it's the VCR. It was not a great console. The PlayStation 4 kicked its ass in terms of look and performance and a bunch of other things. But one of the cool things that they've done is their backwards compatibility, where you can't see it in my shop, but back behind me here next to the closet, I've got a shelf of all of my games, and I can pop in a vast majority of my Xbox 360 games and play them. And a couple of years ago, they brought the old Call of Duty servers back online on Xbox. Modern Warfare 2, Black Ops 1, Black Ops 2, all of that stuff. But it was broken. The matchmaking didn't work. You'd sit and search for games forever. It was a huge issue. But a couple of days ago, they did something, I don't know what, and fixed the matchmaking. And I've been playing the last couple of days, Black Ops 1. If you've been playing, send me a message on Discord. This afternoon, I looked, Brian, there was 187,000 people online on the Black Ops 1 servers on the Xbox, which just goes to show you how many people are wanting to play. I'm back in time. I'm yelling obscenities in the lobbies. It's just, I am back in middle school again, and it's a little bit of a nostalgia trip. But it's cool to see that Microsoft is making these games available, and whoever's updating and maintaining these servers, which is a mix of not just Activision, but it's Infinity Ward and these other companies that own these games and developed them. And that's just been really cool to see. But the big news this week, over the last couple of days, and Polygon's a pretty good site. They have some pretty good stories, and I thought their headline summed it up pretty perfectly. Sony admits defeat and signs a Microsoft deal to keep Call of Duty on PlayStation. So all of the claims of Sony that they're going to strip away our but strip away our access, and they're going to rip Call of Duty away, which, as we've noted, would be the stupidest business decision that any company probably could have ever made. They've given up the ghost. They've admitted defeat on it, and they signed the 10-year deal. And what that means is that for at least the next decade, going to 2033, every Call of Duty that comes out, which there's one every single year, will be available on PlayStation. Phil Spencer said, we look forward to a future where players globally have more choices. Brad Smith said quote, from day one of this acquisition, we've been committed to addressing the concerns of regulators, platforms, game developers, and consumers. Even after we cross the finish line for this deal's approval, we remain focused on ensuring that Call of Duty remains available on more platforms and for more customers than ever before. And they're right. There's no reason for them to do this, and it's just absolutely phenomenal that they're going forward and doing this. This is great.
And they've bent over backwards in every way, and that's something we've commented through the whole process, that there's all these things that they've been doing that they don't have to do or they didn't have to do. This is one of them. I mean, if you look at how Sony acted, in hindsight, it seems incredibly childish. I think the whole time through this process, if Sony would have come to the table, Microsoft would have signed this deal with them. And the whole time they're saying they just wanted to have, to where they could say they're going to take away Call of Duty. They're going to take away. Well, then why don't you sign something that guarantees it's not going to be taken away? And I think every single thing anything that's reasonable that's been asked of them, they have given in this deal. And even some things that I'm sure that aren't reasonable, but I think they showed especially when the FTC and the CMA started crying about kind of random things, They said, all right, you're worried about having access to Call of Duty? We'll give it to everybody. And you remember that week where, I mean, the small
Nintendo
streamers were
signed
getting
it.
Call of Duty. Nintendo got Call of Duty. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody was getting Call of Duty. And so, that's guaranteeing that. And if Sony didn't sign it, they would probably be the only platform that didn't have Call of Duty in the end. I'm sure the Switch is getting Call of Duty. It's kind of silly to see in hindsight, but these are all things that however many weeks ago, we weren't sure this deal was going to go through. The FTC deal was really causing concern. I mean, they were throwing every wrench they could into the process. The CMA said no. But, thank goodness for this is what the court's all about.
Yep.
For when you get unreasonable people trying to prevent something, and even though the person that's being litigated against is doing everything in their power to meet every obligation, and the court systems came through and said, hey, you have not given me a single reasonable reason, something reasonable to say, let's prevent this from going forward. And it just seems like everything's just kind of fallen off to the side. And I think here, the CMA, since we brought that up, they are postponing their final decision on Microsoft until August 29th.
Oh.
So, I mean,
wow, look at that. What a surprise.
I don't know if this is giving a kind of a window that maybe Microsoft and Activision Blizzard need to aim for in these negotiations to say, hey, let's at least wait till after this date passes. But that's the new CMA final decision deadline is August 29th. So maybe, but they say they are committed to completing it before that. So
there's
that
no
should be
way.
The latest date.
There's no way they're going to wait. I mean, if I'm Microsoft and Activision, I'm ramming this thing through, and the CMA can kiss my ass. I mean, that's the approach. That's the approach I would take with it, and I think that's what they're going to take.
Well, and I think it's crazy that the CMA is claiming that they had insufficient time to fully consider Microsoft's submission on the proposed order.
It's been a year and a half.
I know,
like 16 months or 18 months.
And they hinged all of their decision on one thing that they barely spend any time actually researching. What was it, 4 weeks that they spent? I think from what I remember, this is an article we read a while ago, but I think it was 4 weeks that they spent of their total amount of time that they had on cloud gaming.
Yeah.
So they took 1 month and that was the only thing that supposedly was holding back. If that was the big deal, the remainder of the time would have been continuing to try to negotiate and figure out anything about cloud gaming. Instead, they just said no. They still had time to ask Microsoft for something regarding cloud gaming, but I don't remember seeing any requests, any demands that had anything to do with cloud gaming. It was just, no, we think it's going to be an unfair company when it comes to cloud gaming. It's going to be not be competitive. And so I think that they came to the table with not a reasonable, there was no negotiation. It was just a, we don't like it, so you're not going to do it type of an attitude, thinking that they had enough power to stop the whole thing is how I felt. So
yeah.
I don't think that there's much that's going to change because I think that they're now having to save their reputation more than anything. And I think that's what this is going to be, to seem like, oh, well, we've reconsidered. They've met our demands and come to the table and things are fixed and it'll go forward so that they look like they have actually deserve a job.
Yeah, it's been pretty pathetic to watch all of these attempts, and it's and to go back to it, it's a little bit disheartening, especially and the craziest thing about it all, Brian, is that these things probably happen all the time, but we're just we're not in those industries, we don't cover that stuff as closely, so we don't know about it, we don't hear about it, because you and I have been tracking this since day one. I've been following this since the day of the announcement. It's been pretty disappointing to see how this has all gone down. But just imagine how many other industries where it might not even be the FTC, but it could be the some other government. Oh, well, the Trade Commission is a big one, but just government getting in the way of things and going after private business and entity without being able to make a salient argument. And that's really what this comes down to. I mean, if you want to just cut all the BS out of it and bring it down to what it is, nobody, the Federal Trade Commission, Sony, the CMA, any of these groups that were against this merger or are against this merger right now, none of them, not a one of them, have brought up a salient or rational or reasonable argument as to why this shouldn't happen. It's all based off of crazy pie in the sky speculation that, well, this could happen. Well, yeah, that's great. I mean, a meteor could come down tomorrow and wipe the whole world away. And then what? Who cares? Like, I mean, it's been nothing but weird speculation and fear mongering. And I don't have a lot of faith in the judicial system because we've seen how it's screwed a lot of people. But in this case, it's been encouraging to see that judges, including Elaine Kagan, who is terrible, have sided with private business and said, back off.
Yep.
So I'm encouraged by that, if nothing else.
Well, and I think that some of the things that came up during this whole process, first of all, remember all of these systemic issues with harassment that all of these companies, that these unions tried to throw at Activision Blizzard to really make them look like bad guys. This is now Bobby Kotick. He said that never happened, or that they never had an issue with that company. And now I think they can actually say it. He says he's not anti-union, but he says systemic issues and harassment have not been a thing that have happened at Activision Blizzard. These are all things that were brought up, because they claimed the lawsuit, the state of California brought up in 2021, claiming that it had a frat boy culture. And just it was things that we were reading, and you never know what's true and not true. You don't want to make assumptions that everything is a lie. But when it came down to it, I didn't see any substantial claims that came through to prove that there was any widespread harassment of this company or systemic harassment. And so I think that these were all things that were brought up trying to cause issues with the company, make them look non-palatable, to prevent purchases, make the company, because it all really seemed to pop up as soon as this merger was announced. I mean, it really got bad at that point.
So it's not in the show notes, but it's kind of tangentially related. Anti-union. Have you been following what's been going on with SAG and these various acting organizations? Have you seen what's been going on with that?
I've seen that it's happened. I saw the chosen ones are not having to be a part of the.
This is why I'm anti-union, because exactly what's going on right now with the Screen Actors Guild and everybody else who are now attempting to hold, which by the way I'm okay with, because these people, I mentioned this on my show earlier this week, maybe I think it was Monday or Tuesday, or no, last Monday or whenever it was. These groups that are on strike now and refusing to work, I mean, these are the same people that hate you and I. They hate everything that we stand for. They hate the country. So I'm all for it if they don't have any work. I mean, there is very few groups of people I care less about than actors in Hollywood. I mean, there's just they're at the bottom of the list of groups that I care about at all, or care what their opinions are, or care what they think about an issue. And it's, what is happening in that industry is exactly what would happen if you saw more widespread unionization in the video game industry. You would have these massive shutoffs. I mean, what you're seeing right now has not happened since the 1960s. And what is their big gripe from the Screen Actors Guild? It's over the evolution of streaming. They are used to getting paid royalties on physical copies of things being sold, DVDs, VHSs, and pay-per-views and all that other stuff. That doesn't exist anymore. Now, and let me be clear, I'm not backing Disney and Warner Brothers and all these other groups. I don't like them either. But as much as these groups are pissed off about how they don't feel like they're being compensated fairly, these industry leaders like Disney and Netflix and all these companies, they're also in the same boat, trying to figure out this new model of distribution and how they handle paying long term. So it's very much a give and pull, and you're just seeing this. My issue with unions, at least in the modern sense, is that they're just being weaponized. They're not actively fighting for, I don't believe, actively fighting for the rights of their workers or for a better industry. They're just taking their status as unions and they're weaponizing it against every single industry. And that's what they're attempting to do.
Tools to attack big corporation is what it really comes down to.
And sometimes they need that.
Socialist type. Sometimes.
That's okay. Sometimes big corporation does need to be attacked, Brian. Big corporation sucks. But when everything is, now we got to strike, and now we got to close down, and now we're not even going to negotiate, it's like, well, then you're just bad faith actors. You're not even serious about this.
Well, take a look at. I mean, have you looked at Angel Studios? They're the ones who came out with this new film about child trafficking.
Yes,
They
Sounds of
made The
Freedom.
Chosen. They've been making a lot of films recently, and it's a crowdfunded organization as far as a studio that will take donations. People, if they like the concept of a film, they can donate to it. We have a friend who's been a part of doing it early on when it was not very well known, and I think that it's a very good way to kind of bypass, because these companies get so much power. And I mean, you look at what's happened with Disney, and they're getting blown out of the water by a small studio just because this studio isn't putting in all the woke things, and they're doing things that are actually relevant and addressing an audience that's been underserved for quite some time. Because even when something is released for, let's say, a Christian audience, they throw so much trash in it nowadays that it's not really palatable to the average person who's watching it, because they want to have a nice, healthy film to watch with their kids. And this studio's putting out those sort. Not that you'd want to go to Sounds of Freedom with your kids. I haven't seen it yet. I'm looking forward to, but I don't know that that'd be one you want to watch with your kids. But most of the things that are family shows you could watch with your kids, and people donate to the studio so people can get free tickets to the movies. So any of those films that they put out, if you want to go watch it and you don't have the money to go watch it, you go on there and somebody has donated money so that you get a free ticket and you can go watch one of their films.
You give them your email.
It's a crazy concept.
Yeah,
crazy
and
concept.
They'll give you a free ticket. It's cool to see. I just am very concerned. I'm very concerned with what we are seeing in the gaming industry. We're seeing the Hollywood stuff bleed over into video gaming. And I think I can accurately say, and I'm not a Hollywood buff, I'm not a movie buff, but I think I can accurately say that what we've seen in the last couple of years from these groups have not made Hollywood, have not made the entertainment industry or anything better. They've made it substantially worse. And it's amazing that these, the screenwriters have been on strike now for like 2 months. Which means like none of the late night TV shows like Jimmy Kimmel, all those shows have been on, and I haven't even heard about it. Like it's not even a story that they're not
even
on.
mattered.
It doesn't even matter, and that's kind of the point. Now if you're a big if you're a content hoarder and you're just constantly binge watching things, you're probably going to see it. You'll eventually see it and probably feel it. But the outrage I think that they were hoping for, that people would be hammering these companies to give them a better deal, it's just not happening. Nobody cares. I mean, I just don't care, and I don't think the vast majority of Americans care, because not only talking about films and movies, not only do they not like all the garbage that's being pushed, it's so unaffordable to go see things. I mean, movie tickets are outrageous. The concessions are outrageous. Nobody wants to go and see this stuff. I mean, if you bring a family, Brian, you bring a family of 900 to a movie theater, and you guys will drop $300 to go see a movie. I mean, that's not an exaggeration. Get soda and
popcorn, you got to take out a second mortgage on your house.
It's not a joke.
You can go get all the extras.
The last movie I saw was Cocaine Bear, and
wow, sounds like a great film.
It was a great film, but even that, it was like $12 a ticket, couple bucks for popcorn. Now I will admit we may have had a couple of brews beforehand and a couple brews after, but the whole experience.
You had to numb yourself to the bill. So
yeah, exactly. So I just I don't have any sympathy for these groups, Brian. I don't care. I really don't care what Screen Actors and I'm not trying to be a dick, but I just don't care what these people have to say. They have made themselves the center of attention. They've made themselves, political allies and advocates. Have you seen the who's the guy from South Park? Trey.
Trey.
Trey, whatever his name. Have you seen Team America: World Police?
Yes, I have.
Okay. That whole concept in Team America World Police, which was a movie that came out like 10 or 15 years ago. I mean, it's been out for a while.
Yeah, at least.
So that whole thing is how the actors like Alec Baldwin or whatever, we're going to control your society. That's happened. I mean, that's what they've attempted to do. And now they're begging for sympathy and people just don't care. And I'm glad that they don't, because these people don't deserve it.
And I think there's legitimate things coming up that maybe they shouldn't be making themselves seem irrelevant. Because I think with AI, there is going to be a point where we're going to have to maybe have people that are real workers stand up and say, hey, we need to have a place in work too.
Sure.
Not that I think there's always going to be places, but that's where I think the conversation is going to come up, because we've already brought up that all the people that are doing the testing, those are ones that are going to have a majority of that work probably replaced by AI. But even artists, writers, all these things that are these people's jobs, even actors. I mean, digitally, you're going to be able to make films that look realistic that don't have any real actors in them. And so I think that at some point that will become a problem when everything is done by computers and these roles don't exist anymore. Now, does that mean we're going to transition to something different and there's going to be new, because that's how it's always happened in the past. There's always been the scare of, oh, this is going to take away jobs. You take away vehicles are going to make it to where, there's no need for people that are shoeing horses. Well, you're right. You're not going to need a lot of people shoeing horses anymore. But you know what? They're going to need people making tires with rubber and making parts. I don't know that we're going to have, because that's Joe Rogan. If you ever listen to him, he's kind of on this universal income thing once in a while, because he thinks the AI is going to take all our jobs and everybody's going to need some sort of money to keep them living. I'm not that extreme when I think about it, but I think there will be a point where, as a worker, you're going to want to kind of stand up to a company and say, hey, there's risks to going all AI, especially in programming.
Absolutely.
It's not seamless. Even in art, you can't just replace everybody. We have actually writers have been really seeing this lately, because you can pump out a lot of content, but IO9, their staff, according to them, they're horrified at the site as the site's publishing error-filled AI-generated garbage. One thing I want to mention, last week, remember you said I had said that
that's Gizmodo.
Yeah, that's the head company for a lot of these ones that we get content from. Remember last week I had said that it was a Trump appointee. Well, I was testing the feature in Bard, saying, give me a summary of this page, because we were pulling up random articles on the fly. I said, give me a summary of this page, and it gave me that information. That's the problem with AI. It's like an uninformed high schooler writing a paper.
All right, that's a little too close to heart. So,
but
you need to change your statement.
but you see what I'm saying? Like it's very true. And if they're going to be having it to where our news and the things that we consume are generated by AI, who's going to be overseeing to make sure that it's accurate? Because they're seeing here that there's publications coming out, and these things are not giving you relevant or true information. If that wasn't a Trump appointee, but you know what in the article they put? Here's some interesting things you should note about this article. Trump appointee. And they did that from almost all of them, because for the ones where they were knocking, trying to knock Trump.
Yeah.
But this is something that these major companies are seeing. Oh, well, this is a lot cheaper. They're already failing in the first place. This is kind of a industry that's going to the wayside now. A lot of the writers are having to be fired. They're not really making very much money. They're having to pump out tons of articles with minimal amount of time to do any research, to have any knowledge base about what they're writing about. So that's kind of the bad part about it. So is it really going to be that much different? But there needs to be, I don't think AI has gotten as advanced enough to replace your whole writing staff with it yet, because it's too inaccurate. It's inaccurate in coding. It's inaccurate in writing. It's inaccurate in art. When it comes to fingers, it can't do a handwrite. And you're telling me it can replace artists? They got 6 or 7 fingers. I mean, yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, we're very far from where that is going to be the case. Will it get there? Maybe. Who knows? I mean, it's just it's all of this stuff is so speculative. And for these companies, it's not surprising that a company like Gizmodo. I'm trying to remember who owns Gizmodo. It's one of these weird companies. That owns all these sites. They owned Deadspin and everything else.
So GeoMedia,
that's
they have Gizmodo, Kotaku, Quartz, Jezebel, and Deadspin. And they're going to be doing what they call a modest test of AI content on its sites. So they're going to start putting out things with AI, and so far, according to this article, The trials have already been led to a flood of error-laden, plagiarized, and poorly written content due to badly implemented and some would argue inherently unsuited AI models that will have a strong tendency to make up facts. Well, they're already right on course for the previous content.
I mean, what for Jezebel? That's all that they do is make things up, and it's the same thing with hack organizations.
But the problem is, if it's using their previous content to generate content, they're constantly putting out fake information anyways. Yeah. If it's using itself as its source, how do you expect it to put out anything different?
Yeah, here's the front page of Jezebel, and you can see exactly where these groups fall.
Barbie pulls off a clever clever dressing down of the patriarchy.
Yeah, wow,
Jesse Waters' mom bit isn't cute. I mean, they're not cutting articles that are really hitting some sort of topic.
I hope this doesn't get replaced with AI. I mean, I'd just have to kill myself, Brian. There'd be nothing left if I can't read this kind of filth. I mean, it's pathetic. So, all right. Well, I mean, hey, that's the thing is this stuff's all fluid. Have you watched episode 1 of the new season of Black Mirror?
I have not. Has it just released a new one? I haven't even seen it yet.
Episode 1 is called Jane Sucks, and you need to watch it. Okay. And you will be, and that was a recommendation from our friend UGX Vibe, of watching that episode. And it is AI generated content. It's pretty trippy. Wow. But take a watch at that, and everybody else watch that first episode of Black Mirror of season 6 or whatever season they're on now. And I think it articulates the issue going forward, which is a serious issue. The question is, how is it handled? And I don't think picketing and calling for Bob Iger's head at Disney is the solution to the problem. I could be wrong. I'm not in the industry. It just doesn't. I don't think that's going to be the fruitful thing on that. So,
well, I think it's going to come down to people expecting more, because the problem is they've accepted what Jezebel puts out. They've accepted what Gizmodo puts out. They've accepted all these companies putting out trash for years now. And that's become the standard. And the company's figuring, well, it's not going to be that different from what we already currently write. If people wanted to have, because I remember in the early 80s, mid 80s, late 80s, was kind of when I think the news media started to die a little bit. And in maybe it was the war that happened in the 90s that really kind of killed it. But I just remember there used to be journalism where they would go and seek out facts, and they wouldn't be constantly every day trying to have some outrageous story that's going to get you upset. But you know what? They would put in the time, the money, and the work to go chase down a story, and then they would bring it to the public, and the public would actually get outraged because they believed it.
Yeah.
Nowadays, we have things there where they're on each side of the aisle, depending on the news source. They're coming out with the exact opposite set of information, trying to get you enraged every single day, trying to get you worked up every single day. I mean, if you just watch, I don't know how CNN is now. They kind of hold a lot of people. But, they were constantly trying to get people enraged about Trump, constantly trying to get people enraged about this and that. The left does it, and the right does it as well. Fox News kind of went down that path. But I think that's something to where these organizations have totally lost all sense of honor, of respectability, of trust, to where it doesn't really matter what they put out anymore. People don't believe what they write. And I think if the news media was like it used to be, then people would be outraged because they say, I sign on to this because I want to have certain points of view, that maybe will give me a new way to look at something, or I want factual information. I want to have something that isn't going to be found. It took someone researching and finding this out, because when you're feeding it with AI, what new information are you really going to find? There's nobody calling somebody to get a quote. There's nobody it's only using previously collected and known information to generate content, and so you're never going to get a breaking story.
Yeah,
does that make sense? It's just they're setting themselves up for failure by going totally to AI, especially in news.
Well, and here's the great thing. Like any other hot trend, Brian, everybody jumps on it. Everybody wants to, this is going to change this. It will find its place. A great example of that recently was Threads, which we talked about last week. Mark Zuckerberg's social network. Unrelated, they boasted 46 million active users. That number is now down to 19 million. It's been 7 days since the app has been out. I mean, it's been literally a week since the app has been out. And it's, everything, it's the hot new thing. Companies will attempt to implement things like they always have done in the past. Some things will work, other things will not. It's all part of the, I mean, Brian, you probably witnessed this and lived through, I know you lived through it, but you probably witnessed this firsthand with the internet and how many of these newspapers and news websites and local news stations were probably hesitant of publishing their information online. Why would we publish it online, Brian?
Our local
we have a television
newspaper
network.
was crazy.
Yeah, why would we do that?
I remember we had our
Idaho Statesman?
The
Statesman.
Yeah, they came out.
Illustrious Statesman.
they came out and gave a talk at an organization I'm a member of, and they were talking about this. I remember early on they were talking about it they put up these paywalls. Well, we can't just give away information for free. If you're going to put ads on everything, you can if you're not having to print everything onto a piece of paper, and you're going to have to drive it out to everybody's house every single day. If you wanted people to use your content and read it, have a certain amount that's behind a paywall and a certain amount or have a portion of the article that gives you some of the information, but not quite all. And then that's what these companies have done lately. But that was something that they couldn't figure out. They just wanted to put everything behind a paywall. You can't touch and even see a single thing unless you pay us and have a subscription to our paper that you actually is delivered to your house. Then you can read our articles online. Yeah, they were freaking out. And I think that now, if you look at any local news station, like the television news stations, they're so ridden with analytics things and ads coming up. It's almost unable to load on a mobile phone until they've kind of cut it down on mobiles now. But initially, when they started doing that, you couldn't even load one of their pages on a mobile phone. Try loading the desktop site for one of those on a mobile device. It will lag out your phone because they have so much stuff they're trying to make money off of. All the little things to where they've made their sites unusable. It's like I feel like these companies really just don't quite get it usually. How about you just deliver? You already are broadcasting. You control the news station. You have ads there. I think if they could find that balance, people would be more likely to go to those sites and look up news. But they're going to use a news reader, or they're going to use Twitter, or they're going to use something else because they don't want to deal with all the things flying by on their screen.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, that's the latest on Activision, Blizzard, Microsoft, and some things going on over in a little bit of stuff going on in AI. What else going on this week, Brian?
Well, let's go ahead. Here's a feel-good story. So the FBI, they're not always in our best feels lately with some of the things they're doing. But they used a Nintendo Switch console to help locate an abducted 15-year-old girl. So she'd been missing for 11 days. Here, this is in August of 2022. This is where she was kidnapped, sexually exploited. She was found and rescued after she had logged online with her Nintendo Switch.
Damn.
So this is a Virginia girl. She was a homebody. And she met this 28-year-old Ethan Roberts online while chatting on this platform called Omegle.
Jeez.
Is that something you know about Omegle?
Yeah, Omegle's.
Yeah,
you've
what
seen,
is Omegle?
Oh, you had to have seen. Well, you probably don't use probably don't use Instagram. Omegle's the website where you would just go on it, you turn your webcam on, and it would just it like chat roulette. It would just randomly load you into a room with another person.
Okay, so I've seen videos of people doing that. Okay.
Yes, exactly.
So she's 14 years old, chatting. They talked for a couple days, and then they went to Discord and Snapchat, really upping it. He started sending nudes to the girl and then getting her to do the same thing, and it ended up to where he kidnapped her, brought her back to Arizona, and then started pretty much getting her to do nudes on Snapchat and Omegle. So this is something where this is very common. I mean, people like to claim that this stuff doesn't happen. That's what that movie, for instance, that movie is all about. This is happening very often now to where people are either getting extorted, especially kids. They get them to send an image, the kid's embarrassed, and then they'll say, hey, I'll release this to your family, I'll post it to your friends if you don't come and meet me. And then the kid gets kidnapped and brought into a life that they're not expecting.
You're talking to a child. Yeah, I mean they don't have rational. They're not rational and reasonable. They're children. That's why these people are such scum of the earth and dregs on society. I mean it's filthy.
Yep. And there's just so many that are taking advantage of these type of things, or you're just taking advantage of the fact that a child doesn't think through what they do.
So
They don't have good reasoning skills.
This is curious from a technical standpoint. So they weren't able to track her down. She booted up her Nintendo Switch and watched YouTube videos and downloaded a game. A friend saw that she was online on the Nintendo Switch and informed authorities. Nintendo was able to track was able to get the IP address from Nintendo, get close to her location, and go in and arrest these people. And this is a great example. And unfortunately, it's weaponized too often. But this is a great example of corporations like Nintendo or cell phone providers like AT&T and Verizon being able to work with the government to be able to track down bad people and dregs on society like this Roberts guy was. Unfortunately, they go too overboard with it all the time, and then they use it to go after people like Carter Page and other folks that actually aren't doing anything wrong, and then everybody cries a foul. That's the issue. Here's an example of it working. Here's an example of where, freaking out about privacy. Yes, that's a concern. Here's an example where a corporation was able to work with the federal government to potentially have saved a 14-year-old's life. I mean, that's very important.
Well, and that's the problem is those laws are put into place for these type of situations.
Yes.
But then you have the situation where, for instance, with January 6th, where the FBI went to one of the major phone companies, or I think, it was one of the major phone companies, credit card companies, and said, we want all records for any of the people that were in Washington, D.C. on January 5th and 6th, their purchases, and if they have ever purchased a firearm using your service. Highly illegal. One of the politicians brought up the fact that, hey, that's when the families of politicians were coming in for their swearing ins. So you're now gathering unlimited information on all the politicians' families and bringing them into this wide net that you've cast. That's not what this law was put into place for. The law was put into place to be able to catch criminals in the act like this that are exploiting children and breaking the law in certain ways. The problem is, ever since 9/11, this has been the standard. It used to not be like this, but it was a Republican that really brought this to start, George Bush Jr., who turned around and just let everybody, for the sake of the safety of the country, and everybody was on board because such a big disaster happened, and so we're willing to give up a few things for the safety of America. And look at where we're at now. It's been unfettered, it's been unhindered, and we're at a place where the FBI, these organizations, CIA, they do whatever they want because they realize who's going to stop them is the problem. When you're the top of the investigations chain, who's going to stop you? And I think that's kind of the place that we're kind of waiting to see. Well, who does stop them? Is there anything in place to prevent any of these things from happening?
No.
And the problem is it's going to eventually hurt this to where if they're then limited on a lot of things they can do, it's going to make it more difficult for when they want to do something legitimate. But it's the boy who cried wolf. We always say that story to our kids. It's the boy who cried wolf, and the FBI is crying wolf. Well, what about when there is the wolf? That's the wolf, and you're going to make it to where you can't get the wolf if you keep on chasing things just for political reasons.
Absolutely, you lose the trust, you lose the faith, and I mean, I don't want to get into it too much, but you go all the way back to the origins of the FBI and J. Edgar Hoover and why it was started in the first place. And it was not for a good reason. It was to do exactly what you just described. And it seems like they're back to that now. Let's talk about GTA for a minute here, Brian. Yes. So back about a year ago, some GTA 6 leaks made their way online, and
had a lot of them working on animations and character movements and some cut scenes, things like that.
And they were able to arrest an 18-year-old who was the one that was responsible for this, or is alleged to be responsible for it. However, according to a story here from Reuters, this guy is so mentally ill or is such a good actor that he was declared unfit to stand trial for psychiatric reasons, which is you have to be really, really crazy when that gets declared. Yeah, because this guy, and by the way, this 18-year-old, is not alone in this. He's also accused of carrying out blackmailing large corporations, including Rockstar, Take-Two, NVIDIA, Uber, Revolt, Microsoft, and others. So, I mean, this guy, I don't know how he can be claimed to be mentally unstable when he's out here holding companies for hostage.
He's obviously able to do certain things very well. I mean,
clearly, yes.
I'd love to see an interview of this guy and see how crazy he really is. Because I'd be interested to see what he was putting off to be able to get them to say this when he was able to do all these advanced computer things. I mean, you can be highly autistic, but it doesn't mean you're unfit to stand trial. I mean, what is it that he?
I wasn't going to say it, but yeah,
it's not
that's like.
I mean, realistic. The people that have these advanced abilities to do a lot of these things, it comes down to autism sometimes. So I would assume that he has autism. That doesn't mean that you are incapable of knowing what you're doing. I mean, come on. It's just crazy. I'd love to see an interview. I mean, we'll probably never see it, but it would be interesting to see, how this person acts. Because usually there's a lot of people who have acted pretty crazy and not been able to get this leniency.
Yeah, so still no update on when GTA 6 is coming out or some of the other things associated with that. Let's see, what else do we have here in...
Well, here, let's talk. I wanted to mention really quick that GTA, there was a Cluckin' Bell and Burger Shot restaurant that were opened, and Take-Two had them shut down. It was
it's copyrighted
restaurant. Yes, they would pop up during San Diego Comic-Con, and they wore all the outfits and looked like all the things from the Grand Theft Auto, and so they were shut down because they don't have copyright rights to this. So, Take-Two didn't want to play along.
No, Take-Two is definitely not a company you want to screw around with. Let's mention one. Let's talk about our one final topic here, and it goes back not to Microsoft, but specifically to Xbox. It was announced this just actually 2 or 3 days ago that Xbox Live Gold is going away, which might not maybe that doesn't sound like a big deal, but Xbox Live Gold has existed for like 25 years. It's existed since
the original one,
2004 or something like that. I mean, it's been out for a really, really long time, or 20 years, whatever it is. It's existed since the original Xbox, and it makes sense when you first saw when I first saw the headline. I was like, oh my god, like this is terrible. But the original purpose of Xbox Live Gold was to be able to access the online services, which was multiplayer games and apps and things like that used the online connectivity. It was a subscription, $9 a month or $60 a year, whatever it was, to be part of that. But now that they've got Game Pass and some of these services that they have available at similar prices, it does kind of make sense to sunset simply charging people to just pay to play games online, which I've had Xbox Live Gold since I had my Xbox 360. I don't even know what year that was, 2008 or 9. I've had Xbox Live Gold that entire time. But they announced that they are going to be replacing that subscription in September. And what they're going to be doing is changing Xbox Live Gold and calling it Xbox Game Pass Core. That is going to be the name of the service. And this is a pretty smart move on their behalf. So Game Pass Core will include all of the traditional support of Xbox Live Gold, so multiplayer games, deals, discounts, all of that stuff, but we'll have a small category of predominantly Microsoft games that you can play on the Game Pass. And it's going to start with 25 games, and there's some big things on here, Brian. You've got the Fallout 4 and Fallout 76, Forza, Gears of War, Halo 5, Psychonauts, State of Decay, Elder Scrolls Online. These are some serious titles that are on this new Xbox Game Pass Core subscription service, and it's essentially the same price. Gold was $9.99 a month, or they charge $60 a year for it. And this new subscription service is going to cost the same price, and you'll get a limited collection, and I'm sure it will rotate through, of predominantly Microsoft games. Smart move on their behalf, it seems.
Yeah, and there's a video. I don't know if you want to do that. It's mainly someone talking about what the changes are going to be. It's like 2 minutes,
I can show this little chart.
It's going over. Yeah, here we go. So you got the core, so that's $9.99 a month. You got console, which is $10.99 a month. PC is $9.99 a month, and then Ultimate is $16.99 a month. And then they're going to be coming out with that family membership, which they're still kind of working out. They just ended, I think, the trial for it, so I wouldn't be surprised if once they are ready to release that to the United States, they'll just add that to the next list, Ultimate Family or something like that. I think it's smart. Bring everything under one umbrella so that first of all, I don't think a lot of people, as you said, understood what that was, especially people that don't have a history with Xbox, and they know what the Game Pass is. And I think if they can kind of make it to where, here, you get a basic set of features, you get some games that your kids can play for this core feature, people get to play online, you're more likely to get people to subscribe to it and pick up a lot of these smaller ones, because not everyone wants to pay $17 a month, but you'll get people that are willing to pay $10 a month. That's still not that expensive for all you're getting.
But many people were paying $20 a month because you were paying for Xbox Live Gold and for console Game Pass at $11 a month. Yeah. Those things were
well,
not.
And that's what the Ultimate was. What it kind of did was
exactly
merge all those things together into one pass. I remember when I first signed up and got my Xbox, they were separate. And it was like right after I bought my Xbox, then the Ultimate came out, and I was able to convert my membership over to the Ultimate, and it put my gold and everything under one.
Yeah, so this is a smart move, and for people like me that, so I have Game Pass, but I don't have it all the time. Shout out again, Bing Rewards. When there's something I want to play, or there's a period of time when I'm going to play a game, I'll subscribe for a month of Game Pass on either the PC or the Xbox, and I'll play the game that I want. And if I want to renew it, I will. But I don't keep the subscription all the time. What I do keep,
I can
all
bring
the
you
time,
into my friends and family here, Nick.
Friends and fam. Friends of the family friend. Hey, all right. But I always had Xbox Live Gold because it was a monthly. It hit my credit card every year. It was $60. I didn't play it all that often, but it was like, had this since 2008.
If you wanted to play, you could.
If I wanted to go online and play Call of Duty, I could. I want to go online and play Halo, I could totally do that. So now, instead of me not having access to any of this stuff, I'll have 25 games, which, looking at this list, I don't own a single one. I own Halo. I don't own anything besides the Halo games on here. And I assume that this 25 games are going to cycle through. It also notes, I think I read this correctly. I don't. Maybe I'm reading something different. I don't know if I don't know if they'll have day one games on here, but I could totally see a situation where they have some new releases on this base plan. Maybe they don't because they want to convince people to buy Ultimate. But damn, this is a pretty good deal for again, the same price that you were paying just for online access, but now you get access to everything.
Well, this is something where once the merger is completed, WoW subscription, you can bundle a WoW subscription, which is expensive by itself. You bundle that into the Ultimate, you'll get all those people that are of the WoW subscription that'll quit canceling, because WoW is something that you play sometimes. I mean, there are the hardcore players, but you can only play for so long before, and then people take breaks. And that would be one where, well, you're still giving them a reason to keep their subscription up. They can play WoW when they want to, and it doesn't feel like a waste of money because they have access to all these other things, regardless of whether they use it or not. And so I think that'll be a perfect thing to start bringing those type of subscriptions into this, and just make it an even better value. And you'll get a bunch of people to sign up that are on some other type of service that doesn't seem nearly as valuable, because the WoW subscription is really expensive for what you're getting. And if you don't play all the time, it doesn't really seem worth it. But people would be willing to pay an Ultimate subscription, I think, and keep it active all the time, because if they want to go play any game on their Xbox, they can play any game on the PC, they can play any of the streaming content that they have. I mean, it's enough of a set of features that I think people are willing to stick with it and not cancel immediately, every 6 months to every few years. So I'm waiting for that.
It sounds like that's going to be something that is going to be, how do I put this? Beneficial to the consumer. What a novel concept. Yes. What a novel concept. All right, Brian, what else we got before we get out of here?
Let's see. One other thing is handheld consoles. I just want to mention this really quick. There is a lot going into place in the EU that handheld consoles are going to be required to have replaceable batteries by 2027.
Boo.
So, I mean, this is something that they're looking at. Well, you need to be able to change out the batteries, and I mean that's can be good as long as the batteries are getting better and better. And I think they're going to get to a point where you can pop a battery in, and it's going to be just as efficient as what these built-in ones are right now, because they're really squeezing everything they can. The second you have to make it interchangeable, you then have to have plastic casing and things that surround it, and it takes away some of the space of what's inside of that mobile device.
It's going to make the devices bulkier, and it is going to increase
and more
cost.
expensive. That's just how it works.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not a fan of that at all. They're trying to do the same thing with cell phones. Most of the most of these things are, you can go to iFixit and get a battery kit for any phone and do that
phones
stuff.
as well. So phones and tablets will also be required to have them by 2027. The problem is the EU does this, and these companies don't like making two different products for one market versus everywhere else. So you'll have a lot that this will be what you have to get.
Two different products, Brian. You're talking about retooling your entire facility. You're talking about completely redesigning your phone. I mean, this is not like, add a little thing here or there. You're talking about completely changing these devices. We talked about this on the Sunday show. I find this to be incredibly stupid. I've never been a fan of the whole. I don't know the whole thing with replacing batteries. You can go to iFixit and get battery replacement kits for all this stuff. Every town across America has got iFix battery plus this place where you can go in and these guys will replace your batteries for $30 or $40. This is why I hate the EU, because it's stupid crap like this that they try to do. It's going to make your devices bulkier and more expensive, and I'm not a fan of either of those things.
And this is kind of a standard thing over there. If you look at, they used to require you to have a TV license to have a TV antenna on your house.
Still have to pay the BBC transmission tax over the TV tax.
Yeah, I just think this is something that they're used to. I'd rather not be required to have a removable battery. And if I find a product that does it well, guess what? That's where the market will go naturally. If you maybe give a perk for a company doing it, you get people on board with doing it. I mean, look at Tesla. That's the perfect example of them making cars not just about regulations, but making something that people wanted to drive that worked well and had benefits over the non-electric vehicles. And so people bought them, and people continue to buy them. No one was forced to buy a Tesla. Problem is here, this is the opposite of that. They want to force you to go buy the electric vehicle before the electric vehicle is any good. And then nobody wants to drive any of them. Make a product and show that it can be really good with a removable battery. Show the benefits of it. Say, hey, you can have a charged battery to where on the go you can swap out your battery, and then you never have your phone's never dead. Okay, there's a perk. Make one that does it and make people want to buy it. So I think that's the problem, is regulations versus drawing people into something that's good. All right, you're good for us to roll on out of here?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, if you want to find me at Boise Computer on Twitter or at Brian Aldridge on Gab, Getter, or Truth Social. If you want to go check out my blog, biteoftech.com, or if you go to our website, infectionpodcast.com, make sure you go on our upper right-hand side and join our server on Discord. We've got a show news channel. If you want to toss a link into there, we'll review it before the live show and put it in the show notes. Also, if you want to go play some Ark, we've got 11 Ark servers running in there. Maybe your server is going to be shutting down here in a couple months. Come and jump onto our server and get an account created and a character going. If you want to watch the live show, you can do that through Twitch or YouTube. After the fact, you can watch it on Rumble, or if you want to go to the lower right-hand side, you can listen on all the different platforms, devices, whatever's most convenient for you. We've got a lot in our podcast area. Click on the particular one you want, and you can listen. If you are listening, that means that the show notes are uploaded, and go to the audio and video player built into that page, or just click on the links that are on there. We got audio and video links that'll help you to kind of follow along while we're doing the show. These are things that we referenced or that we played or shown during the show that'll help you, if you're listening, to be able to get a little more of that interactive experience. If you want to support the show, there's a menu option up top, or infectionpodcast.com/support.
Absolutely. Brian, thanks as always. Greatly appreciated. And thanks to all the folks joining us live and that listen via our podcast feed. All right, folks, if you want a little bit more politicalness, you can check out my daily shenanigans. It's the Wilmington's Morning News Podcast. Cover statewide news in North Carolina, plus a lot of national political stuff as well. You can find that in all your favorite podcast apps or at nickcraig.com. Also, you can follow me on Twitter at Nicholas M. Craig. And a little blue check mark. What can I say? Money man, Elon Musk. All right, folks, that's going to do it. Thank you so much for joining us. If you missed any portion of the program, don't forget to check out our website. It's infectionpodcast.com. Have a great week, everybody. We'll see you next time.